Welcome to the Twisted Remedies podcast. I'm your host, Justin Couture, a retired cop, trauma survivor, and Jiu-Jitsu purple belt. This is a show where we explore how unconventional approaches like Jiu-Jitsu, music, and other non-traditional remedies can be powerful tools for healing trauma. We'll dive deep into conversations emphasizing the profound benefits for first responders, veterans, and all frontline workers, offering insights and stories of resilience. Join us as we uncover the twisted paths to recovery and well-being. And thanks for listening. Welcome back, everybody, to Twisted Remedies podcast. I am here today with Ben Moore from ABG Creative. You're going to hear that stands for Active Beer Geek. We're going to get into talking about beer a little bit later on. Ben is a Jiu-Jitsu black belt, photographer, videographer, web designer. He's based out of Portland, Maine. He's done work with so many things, but places I'm familiar with and my audience will be familiar with right off the top. BJJ Globetrotters. If you've been to a camp, you've seen Ben with his camera. We almost wore the same T-shirt tonight. That would have been weird. He's worked with Tap Cancer Out, obviously. The shirt I'm wearing, Maine Brewers Guild, bunch of other stuff. He does a lot of work again with kind of the craft beer industry. So, and like I said, he's a beer geek. We're going to get into talking about that after we talk about some other stuff. So, Ben, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on, man. This is great. Yeah, you're wearing Tap Cancer Out. I'm wearing Globetrotters. I feel like we're representing the community pretty well.
Definitely. Anytime I have somebody on who trains, I like to start with, what's your martial arts background? How did you get into it? Why jiu-jitsu? Like what got you? Because obviously you've been doing jiu-jitsu a while. You're a black belt, so that one's stuck. If there were others before that, I'm curious kind of why jiu-jitsu and all of that.
Yeah, the more I talk to people, the more I realize that everybody's journey is a little bit different in jiu-jitsu, and they found it differently, and they usually view it differently now than when they found it. But yeah, it's been going on 18 years for me. I think 17 or 18. But when I was like 10 years old, my dad brought me to this place in downtown Portland called Che Institute, spelled CHOI. And if you've been doing martial arts in Maine, 10 years, 5-10 years, you've heard of them. They and I might be butchering some of Master Che's backstory because I'm not completely sure. But he came from South Korea. He was like the president's bodyguard at one point in the 70s, I think, and moved his family to Maine because he had a lot of martial arts connections. Sort of like the pioneer of MMA in that sense, I guess, in Maine, because he would like combine boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, things like that, kickboxing. Like Mike Brown and Tim Sylvia and other guys who in the UFC came out of Maine, came from Master Che's, because he was one of the only people doing everything. So I did that when I was 10 for like 3 years, got I think a gold belt or an orange belt, I can't remember. And he has the traditional belt system, I think with like 12 belts, something like that. And he would incorporate everything into the system. So I was, doing a little bit of grappling, a little bit of striking, a little bit of wrestling, kicks, his traditional forms of like, katas and things like that. So, spread across the board. Then years later, became a big nerd, couch potato, 17-year-old kid who just didn't want to do anything but play video games. And my dad's like, oh, let's make he wanted me to do something. And I go, yeah, we're watching UFCs all the time with my friends. And he's like, let's try, going back to Che's and see what's going on. And I'm like, yeah, all right. Yeah, I'm open to it. So we go to Che's, and I didn't know this, but at the time, I got there and I realized Master Che passed away, unfortunately. He was a big bedrock in the martial arts community back then. And in his place, there was a couple of people running the gym, and then this Brazilian named Alexi Cruz was running a jiu-jitsu program, and he just moved to America. Knew like 3 words, right? Like, do I do?
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And I became a visual learner very quickly because there was not a lot of communicating immediately, at least. Like eventually he would learn a lot of English. As you know, he very fluent, but right now. But yeah, he at the time, it was, I was a 16, 17-year-old kid, didn't really know a lot of martial arts from when I was 10. Yeah, I learned jiu-jitsu then. And, I thought I knew stuff because I watched the UFC and my friends and we'd play in the backyard. And now I'm, you do your first class and you're like, I don't know anything. I don't know what I was thinking. Yeah, and then I did wrestling that year in high school, my senior year in high school, just to because I think it was an easy, like, lateral move to go over there and try some, wrestling. It definitely made me a lot better. My mindset, I think, definitely improved doing wrestling. If I just did jujitsu, I'd probably have a different, outlook on the sport now, but I did 1 year of wrestling in high school, and I think that changed my brain at 17 for the better. Yeah, just never stopped ever since. Like, I went to a community college, so there wasn't wrestling there. Just made my school schedule based on jujitsu and just, never stopped it. I'm the good example of, what does Chris Howder say? It's not who's the best, it's who's left.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's hard to get rid of me. Like, my
Right.
brown belt years, my instructor will tell you, man, like, I try to show up every day enough to be like, if you don't wanna see my face, I've been training. Like, I would like the next belt, please. Like, when you're in your colored belts and you want the next belt so bad, you're, like, just showing up every day like,
Is it
"Hey,
today? How
is
about
it today?
today?
Is it today?" Like, I'm not trying to be the best one in the room. I'm just trying to show up as much as I can and try to, participate and be a part of the gym and everything, but
Right. So
yeah.
the Master Chase stuff, him being from South Korea, was that the grappling he was doing? Was that like Hapkido or was it jujitsu based?
I'm probably the worst person to ask this question because like, now remembering, I think it was kind of Hapkido. There was some arm bars and some basic, I think,
Yeah.
jujitsu submissions involved, but, it wasn't like, I think, Brazilian jiu-jitsu in its sense, back then. Like, if you were to take one of his grappling and probably Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there'd be a lot of similarities, but probably some definitely differences, and he liked to mix everything together as well, so he was kind of an all-around he liked a holistic, a well-rounded fighter. Which, like, a lot of if you came from those old days of Master Che, like, you were tough and you were well-rounded. Like, you wouldn't give up, but, and you were very curious. Everything new that happened, like, you very much, fostered a culture of curiosity and mastery.
Right. Was there something um about jujitsu kind of once you went down you started down that path, obviously, like you said, you didn't leave. Is there something about it that appealed to you that just kind of made you stick around and made you want to like see it all the way through?
Um, I think now that I think about it, when you that now that I've thought about it over the years, I think it's the community that kept me, I think like everything else, when you find your community, you sort of stay there for longer than you would if it was like self-serving. Um, you know, um, I've had a lot of ups and downs in my life, for deaths and other things and moving and all this stuff. But like, jujitsu's sort of been the through line that doesn't change. The people will change, but the sport doesn't. Hopefully, the instructor doesn't. Um, yeah, like that through line of that sport kind of becomes like a foundational bedrock of like how you sort of operate, like in your brain and how you communicate and how you like to cultivate your community around you because you want like yeah, jujitsu is fun and it's a great workout, but at the end of the day, like I like awesome people around me. I like that family vibe. Like in our gym, I'm always like, let's go for barbecues. Let's have these community events because that's what really keeps people, especially like invite all the white belts because that's what keeps them going. Like it's those first couple years that you really have to foster them to be like, you're a little baby bird and I want you to grow up. Like I do want you to grow up because if you
Right.
give me a hard time, I get better too. So, there shouldn't be any hazing, everybody should be treated I wanna motivate you to go, to work hard, but at the end of the day, like, I wanna make sure you're part of the family if you wanna stay.
Well, and I think making them that's a good point because making them realize that it's a grind no matter what, like no matter how hard you work or how fast you learn stuff, it's going to be a grind one way or the other. So you embrace the suck and just put your time in. And I think that having that approach with that community approach can help people overcome that for sure.
I absolutely, yeah, embrace the grind. I used to be a distance runner from, like, 18, 19 to, like, 25, and yeah, I think that helped also, like, when it sucked, you're like, "Good," which now sounds like Jocko. I didn't know at the time, but, like,
Right.
now it's a Jocko quote, but at the time, when it sucked, you're like, "Good, yeah, alright, this is how it's
Yep.
supposed to be, I guess."
Growth.
Yep.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned community, and I'm wearing a TCO shirt, and when I went through, everybody listening, I'm sure already has heard me say this a million times, but 21, I got diagnosed with lymphoma, went through all of that. And my oncologist right at the onset was like, yeah, you can't, like, you aren't going to have an immune system. You can't train. And I was like, but you don't understand. I was like, but wait a minute.
Person, the worst news ever.
Right. Like, but I have to. So I got her to compromise with me, and I got my wife to agree to this. I would bring I had like a grappling dummy. I brought my grappling dummy, wore a mask, I put my gi on. I could barely, like, I was weak, but and no immune system. And I'm in the back watching. They're all doing, learning the techniques, warming up, doing the drills, and I'm in the back with my dummy. And it sounds goofy, but like just being there with my group of people,
Mhm.
like
Yep,
was medicine for me.
absolutely. When people get injured, I go, "Just show up." And they're like, "Well, but I can't do it." And it's like, you being in the room is so useful for your brain, and not just from, like, a learning standpoint, and not just from you need to not miss a class to make sure that your instructor knows that you care. No, like, at the end of the day, like, your brain feels happy when you're in that room. It's, like, built into you once you've gone to, like, a couple months of classes. It's so, ingrained.
So you mentioned, part of the focus of the show is to get people to use. For me, jujitsu is a tool about overcoming like a whole lot of trauma, a whole lot of stuff that I didn't really know I was in the thick of until till it caught up with me. Um, you had mentioned, a couple of like how it's kind of that community has helped you get through that. Is there? it- Do you do you find that jujitsu itself, aside from the community piece, that like your time on the mats and the training has that helped you get through hardships, hard times, struggles, and if so, like what is it about it that you think does that?
Um, Sorry, I'm making them go on the bed so they don't bark. I so your listeners probably haven't known this about me, but, when I was 23, I lost my wife to leukemia. We got married 6 months prior. 3 months after we got married, she was diagnosed, and then 3 months after that, she passed away from AML, amyloid. I used to remember that acronym like it was maybe I blacked it out, but, AML, yeah, and basically, yeah, the mats are sort of a place where you can go to that nothing else exists, and, like, my instructor was so great about making sure that, uh, when I was there, he didn't talk about it. It was like, it didn't exist, like, no one knew unless they knew me, they didn't know, and even if they did, like, they didn't bring it up as, like, the biggest topic ever, but, yeah, like, honestly, it was a great form of therapy, because there's not a lot of things you can do in your life that unless, like, you're at work, but even still, you're at work, it's not usually something you super enjoy, like jujitsu. You might enjoy it, but you don't wanna, like, literally travel the world to do this probably for your work. Um, like, we wanna travel all over the world to do jujitsu at the end of the day, but, yeah, like, it's somewhere that you can separate everything from, and that focus is so, I think, integral for the healing process, like, emotionally. And then having some bedrock of something that's not gonna change. Like, I think I used bedrock a lot in this episode. I used to do a podcast, so now I'm, like, catching myself using words
That's okay.
more than once. But it's a way to sort of, may like, having that through line, like I said, like, something that never changes,
Right.
is usually useful for people's, I think, brain and healing emotionally. Like, you need something you can always go to that's never gonna change, and sometimes that's your wife, sometimes that's something else, that emotional bedrock. There it is again.
Yeah, that's interesting because I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and I don't know that that consistency has come up, but I think there's definitely something to that. Like it's the one thing that doesn't change and that keeps you so focused on it that you have to focus on the consistency. I like that.
Because a lot of times when you're going through cancer, when you're going through a lot of other things, there's so much up and down, there's so much things happening. Every day is a different, like, adventure, and if you have one thing that's not gonna change, that you love to do, that you're like, everything else is going crazy, like, maybe you're going through a divorce, maybe you're going through, uh, cancer, like we're talking about, whatever it is, And every day is like, I gotta talk to this person and this person and go here and do this. And like, I have a million things on my calendar, but jujitsu is the one thing that doesn't change.
Love that. That's yeah, boy, that's good.
Like if I'm as a photographer, I have the PIA tax, pain in the ass tax. Like if you book me on a weekday at 6 p.m., it's twice as much because I would rather be doing jujitsu than anything else.
Yeah, well, I mean that I think that's fair. That's after hours. I think yeah, why
Yeah.
not?
But if it's 6 p.m. on a Saturday, I'm like, oh, like if it's a $400 shoot, whatever, $500 shoot, I'm like, yeah, great. But if it's like 6 p.m. on a Wednesday, I'm like, that's gonna be $700 to $800.
Right.
Like, and they're like,
You're cutting into my mat time.
yeah, and they'll tell me like it's just a 2 hour shoot, and I go, that's my jujitsu time. And if you get it, you get it. I'm like, you can book me any other day. Like, I give you all the times, and you're like, well, I'm only available in this. Okay, great, no problem. But this is the price because I'd rather be doing jiu-jitsu than anything else.
I think that makes sense. So you get into so how do you mentioned couch potato, kind of you nerded out on stuff. Is part of that what gets you into photography, videography, web design, all of that stuff? Is there a correlation there, or was that a whole separate path?
I think the brand Active Beer Geek is like the geek part. I think is the through line of most things in my life. Like getting into beer, getting into I build computers for friends and colleagues and myself. Videography, photography, jujitsu. I think you have to be a nerd to be into jujitsu for more than 2 years, really. Probably for more than a year because after learning your basic 4 or 5 chokes, I think some that the blue belt blues, right? You think you get your blue belt, you think you know everything, and you leave. That's the person that's not as nerdy or maybe creative, or and there's obviously life things that happen, but like if you never see them again on the mats, they think, oh, this is sufficient enough usually. Um, Whereas like every other creative person's just like, that's not good. Like I can learn 18 different versions of the omoplata. This is gonna be great. Like, and I'm gonna I'm gonna look up everybody who does omoplatas in tournaments. I'm gonna see what their style is and see how they control it, and then see how they submit from it. Oh, do they combine this, this, this? That's where the nerd rabbit hole goes.
Yeah, well, I think it's so cerebral too. Like for me, there's stuff I don't know, so I have to know that, and which means I probably will do this until until I drop. And if I push myself hard enough, that'll be sooner than than it should be. But it's such a cerebral martial art that and I'm sure other ones have. I did Taekwondo briefly as a kid for like 3 months and just wasn't into it. But there's just something about jujitsu that is you can geek out on it easily, I think.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it does hit. I don't know if it's like left and right. Probably, definitely hits left and right. But like I don't know the mechanisms of how it does it. I just think it's creative. It's community. It's physical activity. So you're getting your endorphins, your all those tocins that you get. I don't know which tocin, whatever. You get a lot of the chemicals that are happening when you're working out. You get the people around you, your friends are around you, and then the accomplishment. Like I think having 5 belts is such a clutch thing. Although I've heard the clickbaity titles of like articles saying there should be 2 belts or 3 belts, but um, I think having very little belts means each belt that you achieve has a lot of merit to it and a lot of weight to it. I just remember every belt ceremony being like, "Oh my god, I got my blue belt! This is amazing!" And then you got your purple belt. You're like, "I can't believe I got my purple belt! It's been 2 years. This is insane!" Because it took so long to get one belt. Um, yeah, I think jujitsu is just engineered for the geek who wants to master everything, and even the athlete. There's some sort of I think a little bit of a geek in them, a little bit.
Yeah. Before we dive back in, a quick request. If you're enjoying Twisted Remedies, please subscribe to the show. It's the best way to stay updated. A like or positive review on your podcast app helps us immensely, and don't forget to follow us on social media for more. Thanks for listening. Now back to the conversation. And then somehow you found a way to do something that I think if everybody could write their own sort of like path in life, they would go, I want to combine stuff I love and be able to make money doing it and smash those two things together and be able to like have that be their job. You have somehow found a way to do all of that. So I'm super interested And that formula, was that an accident? Was that strategic? Like you've combined, you rattle off a bunch of the stuff that you do, but like I know you as the guy with the behind the camera at camp. And after kind of knowing of you there, I followed you and watched your stuff, and like something as simple as you put up a picture from the fireworks in Portland. It's like the most amazing fireworks picture I've ever seen, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that, but the fact that you can take something like that, but also combine, like, you work jujitsu into that, and you get to kind of combine all of these things, I just think is super cool. So how'd you do that?
Uh, big broad question. Yeah. Which I love. It's you don't get paid for a lot of it for a long time. That's how a lot of creative work probably starts for a lot of people. Knowing a lot of website video people, videographers, content creators in general, actors. You do a lot of work either pro bono or for very, very little money until something catches. You create your own brand. I think nowadays it's way easier to start your own thing than it's ever been. The barrier of entry for any equipment is the lowest it's ever been. Computers, everything. Back in the day, you had to like know how to build a good computer to get a good computer, or some people just buy Macs. But like, if you're a tinkerer like me, you're like, all right, like I need more RAM because I'm doing more video work and more photo work and blah blah blah. Yeah, like, going back to the question, like you just keep doing it, man. Like it's so crazy. Like I went to my first Globetrotters camp 2 years ago at Heidelberg, and it was just so we used to me and my friends, we used to do the origin camps for a long time. And then after I think 4 or 5 years of that, we're like, let's switch it up. James, one of our friends, is in Germany. He was stationed there because his wife is in the army. And basically, we're like, let's go to him. Let's find a camp. Like, we have all year to figure this out. And then we saw Globetrotters, and a couple of us were like, yeah, I heard of these guys. They're awesome. So we did a Germany trip, did the Globetrotters Heidelberg camp. It was amazing. And then afterwards, and this is how I'm connected to Globetrotters. Afterwards, I'm like, "Oh, they have a Maine camp?" Like, I live in Maine, like, it's an hour away. So I did the Maine camp. I did the videography that year. This was last year. And it was me and Chris Paines that were primarily doing. I think I did most of the video, but then Chris Paines would cover me a couple times. Um, the 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 villain, what is his Instagram name? Like Laughing Villain or something Villain.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I feel like it rhymes, but I can't think of what it is.
Yeah, man, when he's teaching, his diabolical laugh when he's trying to, like, put hurt on somebody, you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I don't wanna be on your bad side because you're like the Joker, man." Like, you're
Right.
like, you're laughing, but it's not good. Yeah, he was covering a little bit of the video work for me. And if you don't know, Chris Paines is a black belt out of England. I wanna say shoot, I don't know what his instructor is, but at this point, I think Globetrotters lineage is a weird thing in Globetrotter community.
Right. Right.
Quite, puts merit to that as much as everybody else. But yeah, and then the Arizona camp was 6 months later, and then I reached out to Christian and said, "Hey, like I'm a videographer, as you know, like I'd love to record the video in Arizona." And he's like, "Great." And he's like, "Do you want to teach?" And I was like, Yeah." Um, Deer in the headlights, like, sure." And I taught my first camp. It was absolutely like I don't almost remember. I like blacked out. Like I taught it, and then afterwards, I'm like, I don't know what happened. Like somehow it's on YouTube, you guys can look it up. It's an arm drag class. I probably messed up most of the things there, but, it was fun, I loved it, Arizona was great, Jay Page's gym is amazing. Came back this year to the main camp and hopefully coming back to Arizona, but yeah, Globetrotters is such a cool community to be a part of, but to go back to your original question, sorry, I veer off and I go back.
Perfect.
I was a horrible podcast host back in the day. You have to keep corralling me back. I needed a co-host at all times. Uh, we like, you just kind of reach out and do free work. Like this weekend, I'm doing work for Flow Sub Only Grappling. It's a submission only tournament. It's up in Rockland. It's great. Hosted by Hayden Christian, who's is that Hayden's last name? Shoot, if I butchered your last name, I'm so sorry. It was off the top of my head. Um, but yeah, that's a great sub only tournament that's been going on for a long time. I think it's the underground this weekend, so that means it's like super fights only, like a tournament based thing. So he hosts the super fights in his gym, and it's really cool. I do the video photo work for that. I did NEF for a long time, the local MMA scene in Maine. Globetrotters, Tap Cancerata worked with for a little bit. I've been shooting their Danvers, Massachusetts tournament since 2017. Um, yeah, so you just kind of you slowly but surely sort of get your tendrils into a lot of the things that you want to do. And for me, it's jujitsu, it's beer, it's concerts. I used to shoot a lot of concerts. Yeah, I do credit a lot of the beer industry for kind of how I started. Like, I had a blog way back in the day when I was 21 and wanted to blog about beer. Then that turned into me buying a camera, that turned into me shooting events, that turned into me, getting hired by breweries to then build websites. Because then I worked for a marketing agency and I built websites anyway. And they're like, "Oh, can you build us a website?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then I could do the photography for you. And then I, but most people don't know until, Instagram came along was had a degree in video, so I could do video work. But until Instagram came along, no one really needed a lot of video work until social media, the video and social media aspect came along. And so you just sort of like, you just like jujitsu, you sort of like roll the punches and you go with it and you lean on the things that you're good at. Like, I'm a half guard butterfly player. I'm also a really good videography, photography person at the end of the day. So I love, those jobs more than websites, but websites are really fun too. I love building websites for people.
I mean, it kind of sounds like it's your same approach that you mentioned with you. You're the you outlast everybody. You're putting yourself in the places. Like, here I am again. I'm back.
Yeah, you just keep showing up. Honestly, it's you try to figure out how to make yourself different too. Like, at the end of the day, like, I love editing and I love optimization and process. So I love, building out my machine so that I'm the slow part of my machine. And the editing process, you batch edit, you learn all the techniques on how to edit a 10,000 photo wedding in like a day, and then you can turn out a wedding in a week. And then basically that bride's like, "Oh my god, it didn't take 6 months." And that's how you can make that's just an example of how you can make yourself different.
Yeah, and then that word spreads to other brides, and then you're the wedding guy. Are weddings really terrible? I've heard from other photographers that weddings are just awful, or can be. And
Weddings
I don't want to put you on the spot because I want people to hire you. But
honestly, I love weddings. I think anybody who works weddings will say that they equally love and hate them. I love them. I don't hate them. It depends on the people. But the weddings themselves, it's just a big event that's imagine the best thing that, like, what's gonna be the best thing that's happening in their life, and you're capturing. The pressure is you only have one chance to do it. So if you miss anything or you screw anything up, you'll never get a redo. So it really teaches you how to shoot an event really well, because that's kinda how events work. Like, it's only gonna happen once, and if you miss it, you missed it. So you really have to be on your toes. It helps you really shoot know your camera settings on the fly. So I keep everything in manual. You kind of learn and how you like to shoot and how you like to adjust on the fly. So, like, for me, it's like shutter speed, aperture, those things. Like, I learned from shooting smaller events to shooting weddings. I learned how to use my camera. Like, you can give me any kind of camera and I can use it. Like, uh, I think my friends love using me as a second shooter because they're like, "I have some extra Sonys. Can you use that?" I'm like, "Yep." Like, I have icons. I'm like, "Yep." Whatever. Just tell me where the buttons are and I'll figure it out. Like, no problem.
so for the photo or video kind of geeks out there, my son being one of them, who's probably I'm gonna make him listen to this episode because you've already had some good stuff that he can run with. But what do you shoot with? What's your primary camera?
So I have a full frame camera and a crop sensor camera. So my full frame is an older A7 III. I was shooting, so I like to shoot with a camera as long as I can until it's in the ground. I had a 60 Mark I back in 2012, and now it's a dinosaur camera. It was a very affordable full frame camera back then. I loved it. It was one of the first DSLRs that ever shot 1080p video. Not great 1080p video compared to now with the codecs and the bit rates and everything, but um, at the time it did the job and it was great. And I shot weddings, and when I upgraded to my A7 three or 4 years ago, I was thinking, man, how did people pay me to use that thing? That was dinosaur. But you figured it out. Like, that was my camera for nearly 10 years. So, like, that was you learned it in and out. You learned how it works. You learned how it doesn't work. You learn what the limitations are. And then once you upgrade, you start all over with a new camera, a new platform, because I had a Canon before, and I moved to Sony, um, more for the video aspect as well as photo, because Sonys are good hybrid cameras in general. And I wanted a full frame so I can do low light, for when I'm shooting events. I want that full frame, that sensor to really pick up the low light. Um, I got my second camera this year. It's a crop sensor camera. It's the A6700 from Sony, so I can interchange the lenses. I chose the A6700 because it's got the sensor of the FX30, I think. Either the FX3 or FX30. I think it's the FX30. It shoots 4K 60, 4K 120. It shoots 422, 420. Like, it shoots crazy bit rates, crazy resolutions in a tiny, tiny portable camera. And the only difference is from the FX30, it doesn't have a built-in fan. So it does overheat at 4K, but you can buy a $30 fan on Amazon and just like prop it on the back of it. And it's great. So save yourself, $500 and buy the A6700, prop that battery pack and the fan on, good to go for the whole day. It's great.
Awesome.
Uh,
I understood quite a bit of that, but but the people listening who like the photo people are going to go, oh yeah. So
yeah, they're not fancy cameras at the end of the day. Honestly, I think the person shooting is the most important. Some of my mentors back in the day, they had a few quirky things that I remember, but that was one of the one of the things that I definitely want to pass down if I'm ever a mentor is like train your skills before you train your ability to want the next camera, not be as much as you wanting to have the skills to shoot something differently or better. Like, I just shot anything I could, which is why you're like, oh, you shoot fireworks. It's not like I'm a fireworks photographer. I just know how to shoot with slow shutter, with a tripod, how to do that, how to adjust on the fly. Like, I've done it a few times, so like you sort of figure it out along the way. Watch a million YouTube tutorials, years ago, and teach yourself half the things that you do sometimes.
and they're done that.
Like, most of the work, if you ask me to do any work from 2015 to 2018, and it wasn't something I normally do, like weddings or events, like, say if you're like, "Can you do real estate?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, I've done a ton of real estate." Then I Google all the real estate
How do
stuff,
I shoot real estate?
and then buy all the things I need to do real estate, and then make sure I do that, and because I know how to market myself after I shoot the first 2 or 3 houses. You put it on your website, you make sure you look good, then you start to, you don't tout yourself as the best real estate photographer, but at least you have something that you can show people. And that means you can, market yourself better. So like put yourself out there to then get stuff in your back pocket. So then later on you can say, hey, I've done this before. Here's my Instagram post. Here's this, here's that. Don't be too full of yourself, but at the end of the day, you do need to put yourself out there. And I think a lot of creatives have a hard time putting themselves out there sometimes.
Yeah, agreed. It's you've mentioned the whole marketing side of it a couple of times. Is that is that marketing kind of drive that you have, or the awareness of that you need to market yourself? Is that what gets you like? Obviously, you talked about how you got connected with Globetrotters. You went there and then you met them. You showed up. You were there. But like something like Tap Cancer Out. Is that a product of you marketing yourself to them, or is that another product of like, I'm here and I'm gonna keep showing up, and I'm a I'm a face you recognize, and all of a sudden I'm your camera guy.
I think more of the latter than the earlier, but like I think I went to their first Massachusetts tournament as a blue belt, and I just lost my wife to leukemia, and their first beneficiary was the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So for me, I'm like, I'm definitely competing in this. Like, there is no like question in my mind that I shouldn't uh beat it at blue belt, purple belt, again at purple belt, so two at purple, one at brown, and then I started becoming, I shot more and more events at that point, and so I would come up to John and go, "Hey, like, do you need a photographer for your, upcoming events?" He'd be like, "Actually, yeah, I think we need a photographer for, I think one time Connecticut, and then Danvers, Matt. Danvers is only like I think an hour and 15, 20 minutes away from me, so not too bad of a drive." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, we'll use you next year." So, and after when you prove to him that you can basically turn up the photos very quickly, good photos, everybody, it's like the especially in the jiu-jitsu community, it's like a lot of other things. It's not just, can I do my job? Can I do it right? That's kind of the foundation. It then becomes like, do I work well with others? Do can I interact better with coaches? While I'm on the mats, am I a pain in the butt for the refs? Because I've heard stories about photographers like getting in the refs' way. Like it's sort of a holistic approach when it comes to shooting tournaments. Like you need to make sure that you're not in anybody's way, but also do the job the best you can,
Yeah.
and be everybody's friend at the same time.
Right. Yeah, that's I'm curious, maybe I don't know if you know this, but like somebody out there who is a photographer who's shooting a jiu-jitsu like tournament, I'm taking for granted that they should just know how tournaments, but like if you don't train or you haven't competed, you're probably oblivious to the fact that this guy trying to do the takedown might end up on the mat you're on and you're right in everybody's way. So yeah, that's a good point that you have to be good, but you have to not be in the way too. That's yeah,
And when you know the sport, like the inverse of that, right? Like I love flipping the coin where like it's not just if he's going to come at you or not accidentally, if that move is going to end up being a real photogenic move,
right,
if he's transitioning from that guard to the armbar or something, like maybe something's happening and you're like, oh, that's an omoplata about to happen. That's that Clark Racy omoplata photography move right there. And that's about to happen and you're just waiting for it. Like that comes with experience sometimes, but not that any photographer couldn't shoot jiu-jitsu tournaments. I think they could. It isn't rocket science. It is kind of a simple thing to photograph when you think about it, right? It's not a wedding where there's a minute by minute itinerary that, if there's no wedding coordinator, then I'm kind of the default coordinator if I'm the photographer. I just have to make sure the day goes by on time, and then I sort of pass the baton to the DJ at the end of the day. But and then he makes sure the day goes by after that, but on time. But yeah, it's definitely not as stressful as some events, but it's definitely stressful in terms of like I don't want to miss anything. Like I have pride. Like I don't want to miss shots. I don't want to. If some blue belt's like, did you catch that flying armbar? Like I hope I did.
right.
That's my goal. So
That's cool. The you talked about Globetrotters, and I don't know. There is something about the experience of going to a Globetrotters camp that is it's it's a it's a for various reasons it's a special experience, but it's each one of them is I've been to Maine 3 times now and Arizona once, which is a different vibe because Arizona when the day's done, if you don't make plans, everybody's gone.
praise God. Yeah.
Maine, you see everybody all the time and you eat with them and you walk by them 400 times, which is it's when I ended up approaching you in Maine this year. I was like, hey, you're on my list, and here we are. But I'm curious what your take is on like what it is or what is it about the Globetrotters camps, and you can compare them to Origin too. I haven't been to Origin, but like what is it about them that it makes them it's a unique and such a special experience?
Um, were you at the final awards this year? On
No, we left Saturday.
that's totally okay. Somebody did a so if I were to, I'll get on that point in a minute, but like if I were to just like starting over, if I were to basically tell you the bullet points of all the events that's happening during the week at Globetrotters, you'll look at me and go, "That's a jujitsu camp," and you're like, "Yeah, that's a jujitsu camp." So you get uh obviously like training 3 times a day, like 5 or 6 instructionals a day, breakout sessions on the side mats all day with like specialty subjects like how to run your kids program better or how to manage your media as a athlete or gym owner, which I taught. um, then you have like dodgeball, kickball, a white elephant gift exchange, a pub crawl, beer tasting, what else, a movie night if I haven't mentioned that, uh,
Karaoke.
karaoke,
Yep.
show and tell at the end of the week. It's pro wrestling.
Right.
Which is the
Right.
coolest thing ever, right? Like, I don't know how, and the thing is, like, knowing the camp now, like, I think, like, very few of those things Christian thought of. He fosters a great, like, community where if you have the idea and you wanna run with it and it could really bring value to the tournament, he's like, "Great, how can I make your vision work?" because Christian at the end of the day makes the camp work. And if he makes the camp work with the right environment, it grows itself. It's kind of like Burning Man, like everybody. It's hard to explain why Maine's so special, but there's like a 50. This year was a 57% return rate, which is like insane. I think no one has that return rate for most of their camps. I'm assuming. So I just think that's because
I think it's that like you're all there, like everyone's living basically together for a week, and it is that like that Burning Man or what, like you're just all there, and you're you're put in these situations where it's like, well, I guess I'm going to get to know these people because here we are, and I think fosters all of that stuff where magical things can happen.
there was a blue belt that was sleeping on the bunk next to me at the main camp last year, and I ended up shooting his wedding in November down in Connecticut.
That's
Which
awesome.
Joey Cardo was in the bridal party, and it was just this Globetrotters reunion. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you never know. I try to wear these shirts. I have the red one and the blue one, so I try to wear the shirt as much as possible when I'm like going around, even traveling, because you never know if you run into a Globetrotter. Maybe they've been to a camp 5 years ago and they're still like, oh, Globetrotters, ah. They know the community. As soon as you've been to one of the camps, you feel how special the community is. Even if you haven't been to a camp since, you sort of know that vibe. You sort of see that shirt from across the room if you're at a bar in Arizona and you're like, "Have you been to the camp?" You're like, "Yeah, I've been to Tallinn camp," and they're like, "Oh, I've been to the Zen camp. Oh, that's so cool. I've always wanted to go to Zen camp," and then you just become best friends right away.
Yeah, it's I having been to Arizona, like I stayed with a friend of mine out there, so but it is a different vibe, and you're at Jay Page's gym is amazing. Like they had just got new mats before I got there, and it's amazing, and the instruction is top notch. But it is such a different vibe, and that took some getting used to when I was out there. I'm like, oh, this is like if you don't make plans with these people, you're just not going to see them till tomorrow on the mats, and it was a
Yeah. It was a little bit different for me because I did the Heidelberg camp, which is similar to Jay Page's Arizona camp. So I was used to like, okay, when this is over, like, and Christian does a great job with empowering people to do like pop-up events at night, or like he'll like maybe set up a few dinners or a few things. Like he doesn't go overboard, but if you're like, hey, we're going to dinner here, you can have an event on the app and as a pop-up event, and you can get 10 people to meet you, no problem. So you can create your own friends. Like literally it's the best camp ever because like especially if you're not in Maine, if you're in Maine, you'll make friends immediately with everybody because you're in this like Burning Man situation that like you're there, you're like, man, everybody's my best friend. This is amazing. But if you're in like Heidelberg or Tallinn, or if you're in Arizona, like as soon as the training's over, like do a pop up. Be like, hey, I'm going to this brewery over here, and then I bet you'll get a couple people, or just talk to people like, hey, where do you want to do? Oh yeah, we're gonna go here. So you just put up a message on the app like, hey, me and like a bunch of other people are gonna go to this dinner over here, and then we're gonna go to this karaoke after, and I bet you'll get 30 people.
yeah, it is. It's the community, and I mean, it's not only that, but the whole like mat surfing component of it, where you see all the time on on Facebook. It's like, hey, I'm going to be in this part of Mexico for a couple of days. Anybody? And then there's people like, hey, stop by the gym, and it's such a cool it is global. It's a global community that he has kind of assembled, and it's amazing. But I didn't realize Maine has a lot of jujitsu.
It does now. Yeah. Did you have Jay Jack on?
No,
Or was that somebody? Okay, I know Jay was on a podcast. Have you had any other Mainers on? Am I the first one from
I
Maine?
think you are the first Mainer.
I feel special.
You're representing the entire state, so.
Oh no, 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 no. I coached jiu-jitsu for a long time. I do not represent every. Not that that's a negative. Everybody has their voice. Everybody,
Right. There's a bunch there,
yeah.
and I guess that shouldn't surprise me, but for some reason I don't think of Maine as like, oh, there's a lot of jujitsu in Maine, but every time I turn around, there's somebody else from Maine, and I'm like, oh, and they train somewhere else, and I'm like, oh, okay.
We've definitely had a small community. Just 10 years ago, we had a very small community. Like maybe a handful of gyms in the entire state. Now there's a handful of gyms in the greater Portland area. And then if you go 20 minutes north, there's another handful of gyms, and you're like where like people who've been training for such a long time are sort of like reveling in the fact that like, oh my gosh, I can cross train at like 7 gyms this week if I wanted to. That's insane. Back in the day, like you had 1 or 2 gyms, and you had to travel up to Augusta, which is an hour away, or like Bangor, 2 hours away to cross train somewhere over there, which people would do. But now, like, you have a kick-ass gym 20 minutes down the road if you wanted to go to their open mats and, like, train with them and then go back to your gym's classes that night, like, whatever it is. Yeah, Maine has a lot of jujitsu right now. If you're getting into jujitsu, this is a good time. You're gonna have a good time. Try all the gyms, see what vibes with you better. Because if you're gonna be there 5, 6 days a week anyway, like, well, we'll probably on average 3 to 4 times. I'm talking about myself. I'm there 5, 6 times a week. If you're like me, you never stop going,
That's
4
right.
days a week. Yeah, no,
But as we talked about, that pays off.
it can pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hard work pays off, consistency pays off. I've never been that naturally athletic of anything in my life, honestly. And in wrestling, I sucked at wrestling. Like I lost every match I've ever done. I'm flat-footed. I'm 5'7". I almost said 4'7". I'm not super athletic. I'm not built, anywhere, but I'm okay at jujitsu because I've been doing it for a while and I really like it. So I think anybody who's not naturally athletic could also do pretty well in the sport if you keep going.
All right, let's talk about beer. You have active beer geek as your handle. So I have an affinity for craft beer. I'm probably not knowledgeable in it as people who know what they're talking about. I can't drink it anymore because my liver took a beating from chemo, but I found some like non-alcoholic alternatives that are okay. The mouth feels right and whatever. But craft beer, what is your go-to, like, is it an IPA? Is it a lot, like, what do you like?
Um, I like anything. Honestly, I think uh, personally, whatever's local, and that's good, right? Like, and I can only say that now because the market is so in the best spot it's been in such a long time in terms of saturation, in terms of the amount of breweries that are here, in terms of consumer education. So every brewery knows if they don't hit that mark on their lagers, their stouts, their IPAs, that no one's going to buy them. They're not going to trash talk. Like it's not an industry where people trash talk your IPA if it's bad. They just won't buy it. Because the bar is set so high in Maine and in Vermont at the same time. Like, man, you're in just as much of a beer mecca as I am. You kind of feel like you're spoiled when you go to another state and you try any beer from like I don't know. I'm not gonna name a state because I'm not gonna trash talk a state, but like I've been to so many states where I'm like, this is a beer. Okay. Like this is a beer. I'm happy I'm supporting the local community, but I will not order this again. Like and there's nothing to that. Like maybe there's to me, my brain goes into there's not a lot of competition. Like you need more like we're talking about gyms in Maine, like you need more gyms to pop up in Maine for that competition. To sort of bring everybody up to the next level. You need more breweries making really good beer around you to make your beer better because you need to compete with that on the shelves. They're not gonna trash talk you. The beer industry is very communal, very collaborative. They'll probably even ask you to do a collaborative beer. But if you don't brew that beer very well, no one's gonna
Right.
buy. So
Right.
like the quality is always there. Um, and I think the more educated you get with beer, to your original question, the more educated you get in the beer industry, the more educated you are in beer, you kind of get to know what you're in the mood for. And what's a good example of that? So you're like, it's hot, I want a lager, but I want a Helles lager. So you know who brews a good Helles lager, so you can sort of look for that on the shelves, or maybe you want a dry stout in the summer. Honestly, that's a good style for the summer. You don't need a real deep, sweet, 10%. Maybe you want a 4 or 5% dry stout. That kind of like satiates that thirst just as much as an IPA, but it's just a different beer. You sort of get educated on what you're in the mood for more often.
So you don't have a go-to because it depends on what's going on, what you're having with it, what the environment calls for. That's yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beer geek answer that I would expect.
I mean, that's always the first question everybody asks you when you're like, "Oh, I've been," when I tell people, "Oh, I'm a beer writer," or, when I was a beer journalist, I used to write for magazines and newspapers and stuff, and Obviously shooting beer events and working for breweries for a number of years, and having the Instagram account is, I hate this word, an influencer, which I hate that word so much. Just because I have a lot of followers and I post about beer doesn't mean I'm in it. Well, I guess I influence people about drinking beer, but I am not in front of my camera. So I guess the definition of the influencer is that I'm in front of my camera. But usually, my tagline used to be beer first, because like who cares about me? Who cares about what I like? Who cares about what you like? It's just, is the story of the beer happening in its best light? Um, but yeah, you sort of get to know honestly, in the industry, and beer is very similar to jiu-jitsu in a lot of ways too, with how collaborative it is and how, um, kind of small, like they're a pretty small industry in general. Like the beer industry in general is big, but like the craft beer industry in any local state and city is pretty small.
There was a period of time, this was several years ago now, that I think Vermont was like per capita had the most craft breweries. I don't know if that's still the case. Do you have any idea? Like, did Maine take that over? Like,
Per capita.
per capita?
And if you don't have capita, you you see a lot of things per capita.
Yeah, yeah.
If Alaska opened up 5 new breweries, I bet it'd be the best per
Well,
capita.
that's a good point. Yeah, that's valid.
So, but honestly too, that's me giving you a little bit of shit right now, but at the end of the like, sorry, that's giving Vermont a little bit of shit, not you. But at the end of the day, Vermont had a lot of good breweries, and they still do. So, like, people like, "Oh, Vermont has the most per capita, but they don't have a population." But they have a lot of good ones, man. Like, they have Heady Topper, they have some really good breweries up there that people travel to. People take a whole weekend, 3-day weekend to go to Hill Farmstead. Like, that's a pilgrimage for people, and then they love that beer, and I love it too. Like, we don't get a ton of it in Maine, but it's such a good brewery. And people do the same in Maine. It's just we're lucky that we're the vacation land, s and people vacation here anyway, so beer geeks from around the country will actually do their beer. I call them beercations. Um, and for real, like, I'll go to so there's a beer bar around town called, Navarre Res, and it's a really nice beer bar. It's been around since 2008, and they're like a basement Belgian beer bar, like very Dungeness vibes. Goes really well with the Belgian, whole stick with them. And I'll sit at the bar, and they have like a mug club that you drink enough beers and you earn your chalice there. And as I was earning my chalice, there'd be people at the bar that I would talk to, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm from Texas, and like I'm a beer manager at this bar down there, and like everybody says I should go to Portland, Maine." And I'm like, "Did you just visit Portland, Maine for the beer?" And then him and his wife were like, "Yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
Wow,
we're going to Maine Beer Company. We're going to go to this place. We're going to that place." And I was like you just came for a week just for the beer. That's crazy. Like to me, I'm like, we're so spoiled. That's crazy.
that sounds like a great vacation.
Yeah, I mean, I would wanna go to Austin, Texas. I'd wanna go to there's so many beer cities in my brain I wanna go to, like, Belgium, all these places.
Yeah. Is Portland the beer city in Maine? Is that the
Um,
place to go? I don't
yeah,
want you to trash talk like Augusta or anywhere else, but it seems
no,
like
honestly, I think just like jiu-jitsu, Portland used to be the only place, and now, there's a lot of places. So you can go to Bangor and have a handful of nice breweries that you can go to. Augusta area, ugh, like Kushnog has the best like top 3 pizza in state of Maine, in my opinion. It helps that their bar manager also is a purple belt. See, I love you. Yeah, like there's so many awesome breweries around the state. Honestly, we're almost getting to the point of like the saturation is there for sure, but I think we're still getting to the point of like back in the day when Germany, like a little town could have their own brewery as long as it was small enough to provide the beer for the town. I think you're seeing that a lot in Maine now, where like these breweries are popping up in the middle of nowhere, and they don't have a crazy big system. The people have a day job and they brew this on the weekends, but like they're still providing a good service for the town. Maybe they'll distribute within the immediate couple cities, and like that's it. But and they're still brewing good beer because it's people who love what they do.
so. You've written, you were a journalist, a beer journalist. You've, uh, you've blogged about it. Now you're doing all kinds of content creation around it.
The blog is where it all started,
The
and
blog is where it all started.
the blog is where it all started. I didn't name Active Beer Geek was the blog name, and I did not create that name. That was a name that came from my late wife. she came up with a name. I was not as creative enough to come up with a name. She did, and I ran with it. And I had somebody create a logo for me, and since then another logo. But yeah, it was sort of, I guess, my identity for the longest time, uh, and it still is. But it's definitely I've consolidated. I had a personal brand for a while, and I said, you know what, like everybody knows Active Beer Geek. I think that's going to be the brand that everybody gravitates towards. That's the brand that everybody knows, and that's really who I am at the end of the day. Um, and I thought I needed to separate beer content and not beer content because that's the algorithm and how it worked. And now the algorithm doesn't care as long as it's good content. It's egalitarian. As long as it's good content, they'll show it to anybody. Like you don't have to have an account that's so specialized with a specialized amount of followers. Like back in the day, you had like if you had a bunch of beer people following you and you posted not beer, they'd be like 2 likes, and like a beer photo would have like 200 likes, and you're like, that's where my crowd. Okay, so I have to, my brain. I'm like, I have to have another account to then post not beer things to that. So then they have traction there because I'm making money off of photo shoots and events and stuff. So if I tell them go follow my beer account, they're like, that's weird, and I'm like, but it's got a lot of followers. Now, if you have good content, you have good content. The social media in general is very egalitarian. I like it.
So I ask everybody that comes on, and I think we've hit on a bunch of yours, but I'm gonna front load this. There are always outliers, and I got surprised. I recorded an episode the other day. It's coming out before this airs, but I'm almost afraid to ask this question now because of the answer I got on the other episode. But I always ask everybody, like, what are your twisted remedies? What are the things that you lean on? Obviously jiu-jitsu. I think it strikes me that you don't just do photography and all of that stuff as a job. It's like something that you like to do. That's my read on it. But I always ask everybody, like, what are your twisted remedies? So that's the question. If we hit on all of them, that's great. If there's other stuff you do, I'd love to hear about it.
Um, define twisted remedies before I answer it in a way that may not be.
Yeah, I mean, it's so like
that I'm super familiar with, and except for your podcast name.
Yeah, so I called the show this because, like, for me, jiu-jitsu was like one of the things that saved my life. Like, but jiu-jitsu and the right therapist is the reason I'm sitting here right now. And so it's like I looked the quest when I first started this, aside from talking to cool people, was trying to figure out what it is about jiu-jitsu that did that helped with that. But it's also like I look at it like it's a remedy for me, and it's a play on words, right? Because we're twisting each other up in knots. But there are other things, like I do cold plunges, I do sauna, that are not maybe a traditional thing that somebody does. I've had people say hiking. I've had, like lifting weights. The one, I'll say it because this won't be a spoiler for anybody but you. But the couple I talked to the other day, they run a like jiu-jitsu kind of wellness company out of Pennsylvania, and I asked them, and she looked at her husband and went, "We do naked video game Sundays."
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, "Well, that's a first. I haven't heard that before." So, yeah, so it's just like, what are the things that you lean on for, wellness, keeping yourself grounded, keeping yourself on track is kind of what it means.
I think we talked about most of it. Jiu-jitsu, craft beer, like not drinking. Ironically, people look at my handle and they're like, "Oh, you're just going to be one of those. You took the black belt 20 too far." Like when like you're into beer. I'm sure you're like a 35-year-old half guard player, right? And I'm like, well, hold on. Yes, I like half guard, but like I don't have a pot belly, and like you know, my instructor might tell you differently, but he has a high standard of body mechanics. But no, he also likes to make fun of everybody. But yeah, honestly, I don't drink as much as people think. But like the craft beer industry in general, and like enjoying a good beer at a good time at a good place with good people, I think is really important to me. Mentally, obviously, I think jujitsu super big, therapeutic, everything. Like one time I got in an argument with my wife about crunchy versus soft peanut butter and how crunchy. Why would anybody choose crunchy peanut butter? And she looks at me and goes, "When was the last time you trained?" And
Wow.
I'm like, "Why?" And she goes, "Who argues this?" And I go, "Yeah, you're right. It's been about a week. Maybe I should go, practice murder with my friends. Yeah, that's a good idea." So, that keeps you grounded. Jiu-jitsu does. I have some, I used to take a lot of, I used to have a 2-year stint. Actually, I should probably get back into this where I did cold showers every morning after my workout. That was a lot of fun. Um, it's almost like the things that suck that, um, typically things that suck tend to feel good after they suck. Um, or at least over time when you get used to them, they might suck in the beginning and then they'll still suck later, but then they feel better after they suck. Like, your first cold plunge might not be great, but, like, your 5th cold plunge might be great.
Yeah. And now I do it most days, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and you
Yeah.
look forward to it probably, even though, like,
Yeah.
when you're in there, it's going to suck.
See, I
And
don't even have that anymore. I regulate in like my chiller is set to like 45. I get in, I breathe, I'm good in 10 seconds, and I just kind of sit there.
oh,
So, yeah, it's weird, but
I mean, I don't think it's weird. I think at this point, I've ran into so many people in this world, I'm like, "Nah, nothing's really weird right now."
uh, yeah,
Yeah, it's, I think that's I think that completely answers the Twisted Remedies question. I'm not sure what else I do. I'm a simple person. I used to joke around that, when I got out of high school and I was 21, I used to say like I do 3 things: jujitsu, photography, beer. And then I had my 5-year reunion, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Jujitsu, photography, beer." 10-year reunion, they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Jujitsu, photography, beer."
you're consistent.
And yeah, and that's how you get better at any one of those things.
Yeah. Ben, what's on the horizon for you? Any big things coming up? Any stuff where people can find you? What do you have coming up or going on?
Ooh, this is the one question I didn't prepare for. Let's see let's see what I got going on in my head. I know I'm doing the Arizona camp this year. That's gonna be a ton of fun. Globetrotters, Arizona. They usually have a mechanical bull, dodgeball, pub crawl. Like, everybody should go. It's amazing. Tickets are still available. Christian, you're welcome. Uh, what else am I shooting? A couple weddings this summer. Doing probably 2 more flow sub only tournaments. Just kind of keep myself busy this summer in general, hanging out with my wife, hiking. If you want to catch me, just text me and go, "Hey, like, what's a good brewery in Maine?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll meet you there." Um, I'll introduce you to the owner. We'll have a good time. We'll try some beers. I try to be as hospitable as possible. If you're visiting Maine, I love like showing people my state. It's the best part about being here is like, we take it for granted, but when I see people's faces, they're like, "Oh my god, you have lighthouses everywhere," and I'm like, "Yeah, we have like 30 of them like over here. It's great." Sure, yeah, whatever. Like, breweries, "Oh, yeah, we got like 40 breweries in Maine." Yeah, sure, whatever. Like, but they're like, "Oh, there's such good beer." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you're right. Actually, this is pretty cool." Um, yeah, like, do you remember, Bea and her husband, like, they visited Maine, and I showed them all around Portland, brought them up to Ella Bean, um, and I'm going to the camp without any GPS, and they're like, "You travel without GPS?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you don't?" And they're like, "No, we're in LA." I was like, "That's fair, yeah."
That makes sense.
Like, I've been here once. I've been to the camp once last year. I know how to get there. It's um, yeah. Otherwise, yeah, just keep a hold of my Instagram account, Active Beer Geek, YouTube, uh, Facebook, Twitter, everything, Active Beer Geek. I'll let you know where I'm doing. I try to publish ahead of time what events I'm gonna capture and do and be at, and try to hype it up, because if I'm gonna be in an event, I want to hype it up.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, this has been a ton of fun.
Thank you.
I'm excited that I convinced you to do this. I don't think it was that hard of a sell. I think you I think you were pretty open to the idea when I caught you on the road there at camp. But I'm glad we got you on, and
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time.
Appreciate you having me. This is great. I love being on podcasts. I love you were super fun to hang out with at the camp. This is great. I love this podcast. I feel like yeah, if anybody's listening to this from my side of things, you should totally subscribe to his podcast. I'm going to plug you now. Um, if you're coming from his side, you should totally follow me on my stuff. So yeah,
Definitely. Awesome. Thank you very much.
appreciate it.
If you've enjoyed the show, please consider a like, a subscribe, or a share, or even writing a review. This helps the podcast grow and gets the word out to more people. As always, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.